Hi, welcome to another Harry's Hobbies video, and I'm still working on the Mud Creek models, Chrissy's Cove. It's a three building model kit, which is actually four buildings if you really think about it. But there's a two-story building in here. This is part of it, and this is the other part that's going to sit up here. And what I'm going to do right now is I want not only this part to be kind of jutting out a little bit over the water, but I also want this one. But I want to do two different types of dock platforms. One will be using these kind of matchstick looking pieces that were sent with the kit. The other one is my own mixture of how I do things, and that's using toothpicks with the ends cut off, and by that I mean exactly that. I take a standard toothpick, just like this one, just a regular toothpick, and those ends are going to be way too pointed for use, so I take up just a simple pair of scissors and I cut the tip off, which leaves a round toothpick. So I want it to be as wide this way, but I want it to stick out a little bit towards the front. So I'll set this up here for right now. I have a whole bunch of toothpicks that have already been cut down to size. So what I'll do is I'll take a few more of these and cut them even a little bit smaller so that I can get the offset, and you'll see what I mean by that here in just a minute. The offset that I'm looking for. Oh. Because I'm going to use the maybe I won't. It was here a minute ago. There she is, looking for the metal ruler that I've got, because that's going to provide a nice flat straight edge. And I'm going to take these half ones and put them in between the longer ones. As you can see how those are going to line up like that. And I do a long one and a short one, and a long one and another short one. And I'll go back and forth until I get the width that I want. You can see I'm just barely working on that right now. It'll get there. It just takes it a few minutes. It's a little more time consuming than a lot of other things that I do. Still got a few more to add. But this is the only time that I'll have to add the short ones, because these will line up and provide a good way to kind of make everything look a little more staggered, which will also help with the end result and actually make it look like wood planks instead of just a pile of toothpicks. Let's see if I have enough width yet. Well, I'm there, but I always go just a few more. Out the side, just to whoops, just bumped that one, didn't I? Just to be sure that there's going to be plenty of space. Okay, and I'll go. And then I use this metal ruler just to bring everything into a pretty close and once again I'm going to put this up there to see where it's at. All right, so we're good to go there. Now what I do is I use excuse me, this blue clean release electrical tape cut into strips. I hold this down real tight, and then I take the blue strips of tape and take this down, kind of getting it as tight as I can to hold together. And then from here I'll work forward, and I'll go to, oh, probably about here, but I don't have to worry about using the short ones anymore. I can go with all the long ones, as the short ones that are already in place will provide the staggered that I want. So I'm going to get started on that right now. Alrighty, so now that I have that done, the next step, and this is a simple step and it's a very simple process, is how do you get all these toothpicks to stay together? Well, that's actually more simple than it sounds. Frankly, I use my fallback, as I do with a lot of different things on various models, and that is I fall back to Elmer's glue. And the way I do this is it takes a couple of steps, so you won't see the second step, but you will see the first, and that is I get plenty of glue on the wood, and then I simply take my finger and we force it in between the toothpicks, like so. You want to make sure that you get it a real good soaking. And some of the toothpicks you may have to press down to get them to go back in between, but that's since they're taped down like they are, that's usually not a big issue. But you want to get plenty of glue in between, and it does mean that you have to force it down a little bit. And you can see that one has slid out just slightly, And all I'm going to do there is I'm just going to push it right back and get a little more glue in there. And get a little bit more glue on this, because I just don't feel like I got enough just yet. In a few little spots. I'm going to go like this. Make sure that that gets nice and in between. And now what I'll do is I'm going to let this dry. And what I'll do after, a half an hour to an hour of it drying, I'll peel off the blue tape. And then I'll add more glue in between where these strips have actually kept the glue from flowing into. And so that the glue will have a chance to dry here. And that way I can add in between, and it will provide a more stable base to continue on with the little protruding decking for this part of the model. So that'll be coming up in part 2 of this video, showing you how I go about doing some extra decking. So that'll be next. Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of working on the dock decking. And the Elmer's glue has dried, bonding the toothpicks all together. As you can kind of still see, we have a few little blue strips right here. I mean, that's just a little left over from the blue tape that I used. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down and get it pretty nice and flat. But I'm doing that while this side is still pretty bonded to this plastic before I remove it. Makes it a little bit easier to sand. So we're going to start doing that. And here we go. So now that I have this sanded down, and it doesn't look round like a big bunch of toothpicks right now, and this building is going to set like this on here. And I wanted to leave enough on each side to make it appear like a small walkway. And then these, of course, will get trimmed down so that they're all one length on both sides. Now this side will probably be the easier of the two sides, because I can pretty much use the Dremel with a sander on it. We get that sanded down. The big pieces now like that off. And we get these pretty close. About like that. And then I simply take the sandpaper again and give it a nice little bit of a sanding to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then for this side, I get the metal ruler and an X-Acto knife, and then I slowly bring this up to the first one that's the closest, and we get it kind of lined up as best you can to it being a kind of a straight line. It doesn't have to be deadly straight. And then we go right down the metal ruler. And now we've got a good little line. And I give that a couple more runs through with the X-Acto to get things nice and loose. And then I can go along and I think I'm just going to use these, get them to snip off a little bit smoother. Goes right inside that line that I made with the X-Acto, and they just pop right up for the most part, as long as you don't take them and then once again I take the sandpaper and just give it a quick smoothing out. And then for supports, to make sure that this stays as flat as possible, I simply take, this is a square piece, and we're going to go right along the inside. I'm going to take the super glue, run a nice little bead of super glue right along there. We're going to make sure that we get this whole piece with glue on it. So you kind of go back and forth with across the bead, and then you press this down for just a few minutes. Not even that, not even a few minutes. And then we do the same thing back here. Run a nice little bead of the glue. And you don't have to be deadly accurate with how far these are from the edges, because you're not going to see most of this anyway. And then we're going to go one more about down the middle. And that's going to hold this nice and straight. And then of course I'm going to paint, but I'm not going to paint until this glue is very dry, because this will ruin any kind of brush pretty quick. So that's the basic construction for this. I hope you enjoyed this part of the video. Next up, obviously, I'm going to be painting this. So stay tuned. That'll be coming up next. Hi, welcome to another Harry's Hobbies video. And I'm still working on the Chrissy's Cove diorama. And, you know, like I have mentioned in the past, this was going to take a little bit to do. So, yes, I'm still working on it. And in this case, I've got part of the dock assembly for one of the buildings here. And I'm going to be adding some rope around the piers to kind of appear like bumpers for the boats when they pull up to the dock. Now what I'm using for that is some hemp cord. I think I picked this up at Walmart. It could have been Hobby Lobby. And what I do is I take a strand like this, because that's obviously pretty doggone thick, and I split it apart because I can get 3 or 4 pretty good strands off of that. And how I go about adding it to that, it's really kind of simple. I take the strands and I go around the pier poles, and in this case, since this is a corner, it's a little different to wrap, but you do it your own way until you get what you think is that's going to look good in the diorama when you take a look at it. It's not something that there's I'm not a set way to do this by any means, but I do like to get quite a few wraps around so that it stands out. And then I'm going to, since this is a corner, I'm going to come over here and do a few wraps as well. Whoops. There we go. You get a couple of good wraps around here as well. And like I said, you don't have to be deadly accurate with it. But this is a little time consuming, so be prepared to spend a little bit of extra time wrapping this around the base. Now the way I secure it, I take a little bit of super glue and I just put a little drop, and then I pull the final cord around and let that sit on the glue for just a minute or two, and it'll pretty much hold itself. And then when I start another one, I'll do the same thing. I just simply put a little bit of glue. I take one of the rope strands and I put it in the end of the glue and pull it tight so that the glue actually soaks into the fibers of the, in this case it's hemp cord, so, and then from there I snip it as close as possible. And then I continue on until we have all of them wrapped. So let's get started on that. the rope has been added around the piers. And of course I'll add more, and we'll get the weathering going on, because you can see this green is really standing out, and that's going to be part that it actually sticks into the water. So I wanted to go for a moss type look, but that's a little much, so I wanted to get the rope on so that it could get weathered along with everything else as it gets weathered, because this is pretty much just the base coats of stuff, and they do need to get weathered out so that they look a little more aged. And as is usual, well, I think I'm going to follow this up with a slideshow. I'm not sure just yet, so we'll see how that goes. And once again, hey, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.